A warm welcome to everyone joining us this lunchtime for our live student life session. Over the next hour, we'll be talking about what it's really like to study at UofG from a student's perspective. Our fantastic panel will be sharing insights on accommodation, part-time jobs, and ways to get involved on campus. If you're watching live, you can also submit questions via the text chat, and our colleagues behind the scenes will be on hand to answer them just as quickly as they can. The session is part of our online open day, so don't forget to explore the rest of today's program sessions, including one on admissions and accommodation directly. Firstly, let me introduce myself. My name is Louisa Freeman, and I'm part of the international team here at the University of Glasgow. My specific area of expertise is based in South and Southeast Asia, but I'm happy to answer any questions depending on where you are from around the globe. I'll now hand over to our panel to introduce themselves, and let's start with yourself, Ash.
Hello, everybody. For those of you who might not know me yet, my name is Ash Tyagi. I go by Ash, and I study an integrated master's degree in molecular and cellular biology. So I started with a traditional honors 4-year-long degree. And then after third year, on the basis of merit, I was promoted onto this integrated master's degree. And Glasgow, I think, has really helped me develop personally and professionally. And there's so many exciting things that I'm looking forward to talk about. So looking forward to the session today.
Thanks, Ash. Karina, over to you.
Hi, thank you, Luisa. So, hi, my name is Karina Aulia Mintahir. I'm from Indonesia, and I'm a traveling scholar that currently a postgraduate thought student in Museum Studies, University of Glasgow. Looking forward for the session.
Thanks, Karina. Isabella.
Hiya, I'm Isabella. I'm a postgraduate student doing a Master of Science in Media Management, but it's actually my 5th year here. I previously did an undergrad here as well in Economics and Music, graduated with that last year, and now it's my last year at Glasgow doing a Master's.
Thanks very much, Isabella. Okay, let's get started. The University of Glasgow has a very diverse international student community. Can you tell us about your experience of moving to Scotland and settling in here? And that one is for Ash.
Sure. So I think the biggest thing for me was that moving to Scotland felt really exciting, but also scary at the same time, because I was moving away from home, from family, from friends, basically everything familiar at the age of 18 as well. And so moving countries was a bit intimidating to start with. And then the new kind of shocks, the weather shock, the culture shock, the accent adjustment, and these are the kind of things that I started sort of exploring when I initially moved abroad. But what surprised me the most was how welcoming Glasgow felt. People here are genuinely warm and approachable. And even small things like strangers helping with directions or classmates checking in on you, it really makes a huge difference, especially when you're new. And so looking back now, I think moving here was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made, because it really pushed me to grow, not just academically, but also personally. And I became much more independent, confident, and open-minded, listening to different perspectives and meeting new people and exploring all these different kind of things in a new country while trying to pursue a degree. And so one thing I really value about Glasgow is that it's very international, but without feeling isolating. And so you meet people from everywhere, but you still feel part of sort of one community rather than separate groups. And that's the most beautiful part I felt about Glasgow. At first, it felt very far from home, but then over time, it genuinely started feeling like a second home to me. And the kind of support and the kind of help I've received over the last 5 years has just been immense. And it's been one of the most beautiful experiences I could have ever imagined.
Thanks, Ash. That makes me really proud of my city and my university. That sounds incredibly positive. We'll go on to accommodation now. And I'm curious, are you guys living in halls or private accommodation? And what has your experience of housing been like? And Isabella, we'll come to you first, if that's okay.
Yes, so I've pretty much done all of them. I currently live in a privately rented flat and have lived here for 4 years. But in my first year, I also lived in a private student accommodation and then a university student accommodation. And in general, I'd say that there is definitely something for everyone here in Glasgow. So whether that's wanting to live with a few people and sharing a flat, or living in a student accommodation where you can, live with loads of students, but maybe also you'd like to live in a studio and, have a bit of a more private space. So there's definitely something for everyone here. My tips would always be to look for accommodation a good while before you're actually moving to Glasgow, because there are a lot of students here and a lot of people looking for flats. My top tip would be looking on platforms such as Spare Rooms, or even there are certain Facebook groups. The university has a lot of information and help on accommodation as well, so definitely check that out. But yeah, there's definitely something for everyone and for all kinds of needs that you like to have in your living space. So it's been a very good experience. I've lived in the West End with friends. I've also lived more towards the east of Glasgow with people I didn't know yet, but then became friends with them. So I'd say there is definitely the right accommodation type for everyone, and just make sure to get in there as soon as you can before coming to Glasgow to have a space to live in that is right for you.
Thanks, Isabella. Some really good tips there. Karina, what about you? What's your living situation?
Okay, so Louisa, I actually doesn't have so much time when I first started. So university accommodation I'm really grateful for the university accommodation. I'm living in a student accommodation near campus. It was amazing. The building that I'm currently in is actually only for postgrad and PhD student. So especially in my flat, we only have master's student. So our timeline is relatively the same. So whenever I'm stressed, I'm not isolated because we've been through similar thing. And also, if you live in a university student accommodation, you will have like a lot of events, free stuff, networkings, or trips. And for example, like a few weeks ago, I went to Inverere Castle, and it's all paid trip organized by the student accommodation. It was amazing. We got the bus, we got the snack, we got the castle trips and tour. It was so amazing. And it's not only once, it's like a few times throughout the year. So if you doesn't have any time to like research or anything like that, I feel like the university student accommodation is very suitable for you.
Thanks, Karina. Sounds like you've had a really positive experience, which is great. Ash, you've been here a while. You must have lived lots of places.
Sure. So my experience is slightly different. I never got to choose the university accommodation for some reasons, but I've always sort of lived in private accommodations and in different flats because of loads of different sort of reasons. But accommodation is not just where do I sleep. For me, it really mattered because it does not it doesn't really define your whole university experience, but it is an important first step to know where you're going to live. And so the three sort of categories I started thinking about was distance from campus was one of the biggest priorities for me. And so I wanted to find a place that's closer, and I've always managed to find a place in West End, which is where our university is located. And that was quite helpful. But then secondly, I also thought about the sort of social environment because I wasn't very passionate about getting that social experience from the student accommodation because I did other sort of things to make up for it. And I'll come back to it later as well about joining societies and those kind of things. And then lastly, I was really conscious about the room, bathroom, flat setup situation. And so I think that's very subjective, but I personally did not want to share common amenities. And so that kind of worked out well living in a private flat where I could have my own sort of system for things. And so for prospective students, I would suggest to rank what matters to you and understand what you prioritize because different students want different things, right? And so there are some practical considerations that I would recommend, like commuting in rain, for example. I do not like walking in the rain. And so for me, living close to campus was very important. And then things like safety and convenience for late evenings. And so I like to spend time at the library quite a lot. And there would be days when I'd leave the library at 3 a.m., for example, sometimes. And our uni library is very accommodating with that. But then I had to be mindful of how I'm gonna get home and think about public transport or walking home and those kind of things. And then things like how many flatmates you'd actually enjoy living with. And this comes with experience as well, right? Because when you first moved abroad, you might have never lived by yourself. And so it's getting that exposure, that experience, and think about what future you will care about day to day, and not just what sounds nice on paper, would be my suggestion.
Another good tip there, Ash. Very, very well said. So now we'll come to the campus. And Isabella, I wonder if I can come to you. What would you tell students the main campus is like? Where are your favourite places to study and socialise?
Yes, so the main campus is honestly one of my favorite things about this university. Obviously, we have the beautiful main building, which, and to be honest, most days, even on like a lunch break, I actually go walk through the cloisters and I have my entire camera roll is full of pictures of the old campus building. So that's probably my favorite part of, one of my favorite parts about Glasgow Uni. But the rest of the campus is beautiful as well, especially now in the spring. There's like pink flowery trees everywhere. So it's really nice. And in terms of studying, there's quite a lot of different study spaces actually I always try to, go to different spots on different days so that I don't get too bored. I study a lot in the library, which is a really good place to study. I think it has 12 floors, so plenty of space for you to study. But then also there's some other study spaces on campus as well, and some hidden ones too. So if you're coming to Glasgow, make sure to check out every single building for some hidden study spots. There's also the reading room, which is right next to the library, which is really nice as well. And sometimes I go and study in the new buildings on campus as well, for example, the Adam Smith building. So there's plenty of study spaces, and some bigger ones, some smaller ones, some silent study space, some study spaces where you can socialize and talk to friends. So there's really something for everyone. And my top tip again is just to check out all of them and then sort of figure out what your favorite spots are. And that's what I did. And now I just sort of go between my favorite spots. And in terms of socializing, again, some study spaces are very good to socialize because you might have, a cafeteria or a non-silent study space where you can study with friends. I've also spent a lot of my time socializing in the student union, personally, which has been a really big part of my uni experience. They have loads of events throughout the year, parties, concerts, even things like dance classes I've done in the union. So those are my tips for studying and socializing. But whatever you do, just make sure to check out as many buildings and spots on campus as you can. Oh, also, I really enjoy studying in some cafes sometimes. The West End is full of cafes, and loads of them have really nice study spots. So just make sure to explore the campus and find whatever spot suits you best.
You really have been all over, haven't you, Isabella? It sounds like you've embraced the full campus, which is wonderful. For those who haven't studied a postgraduate degree before, roughly how many hours of teaching do you have a week? And Karina, you've unmuted, so we'll come to you.
Okay, thank you, Louisa. So it's actually really varies depending on the program, but most postgraduate thought degrees at the University of Glasgow, the actual teaching time is actually usually quite limited. Often around 6 to 12 hours per week. I have roughly 3 days of teaching that is consists seminar and workshop, and I have around 2 to 3 hours of teaching. But I believe in master learning, we have a lot of independent work, such as reading and researching. However, the expectation is that you spend a significant amount of time on independent study outside the classroom. So while contact hours might seem light compared to undergrad study, the reading, the assignments, the research work can easily take up 30 to 40 hours per week or more. So I think that one of the biggest adjustment for a new postgraduate student and much more self-directed. So time management and discipline become really, really important.
Yeah, we hear that year on year, Karina. Really good advice to anybody thinking about studying a postgraduate degree. Support is a key part of the student experience here at the University of Glasgow. I guess I'm going to ask you guys, and I'll come to Ash if that's okay. Have you used any of the support services during your time here?
So I am done gatekeeping this. I really wish someone told me this when I started my degree, but asking for support can be embarrassing, right? Asking for support can be challenging in the beginning. And so I took a really long time to explain to myself that support just doesn't have to be crisis-based. It can be proactive. And that strategy has changed a lot of things for me. And so the kind of main points where I received support from and I requested support from involve things like student support officers, career services, academic support, international student support. And I hope this evidences the broad range of support that's available at the university. And so what I really appreciate is that support here isn't just for emergencies. It's built into the student life, involving things like career support, for example, which you might not even know that you need. And so for me, exploring that option for the first time was also a bit of self-realization that, wow, like I wish someone told me that I needed this, but I did. And I only understood that after requesting and after availing that support. And so do not be afraid to sort of request or to sort of think about that support. And thinking about it proactively as well. And so the career service and the sort of broader university opportunities honestly played such a huge role for me, and they helped me secure work experiences, for example, at places like AstraZeneca, which I'll talk about more in a sec, and some other research placements as well that I did, not just in my own university, but then in University of Cambridge, and then the kind of internships and stuff. And so applying for them and getting that support was super amazing for me. And then lastly, I think a lot of students assume they need to figure out everything alone. But Glasgow is actually very good at creating those systems for you where people want to help you succeed. And so know your roots, know what you might need when you start or when you end up in a situation, be prepared in advance, and then use it proactively, not just in a crisis, would be my suggestion.
Again, another really good tip, Ash. We have a whole range of supportive services at the university to ensure students feel supported from the minute they arrive in Glasgow. Along with our international student support team, who provide visa and immigration advice, as well as an orientation programme, we also have our disability service and counselling team, who are on hand to help everyone or anyone who's looking for a bit of additional support. We have our student learning development and career service, who can help with advice on finding part-time work, as well as providing tools to help you reach your future career goals. In the Fraser Building on campus, you'll find the Student Services Inquiry team, who can help with a range of inquiries on arrival, as well as the registration and enrolment support team. Within each subject area, we have a dedicated student support officer who can be your first point of call for any issues you are facing. We also fully trained peer support wellbeing support team who are always around to listen and provide support. So I think what we're saying is the support's there. You just need to ask for it. We'll go on now to a big concern for many new students joining the university, and that is meeting new people. How easy did you find it to make friends in Glasgow? And that one's for Isabella.
Yes. So what I will say is, do not worry. Honestly, Glasgow's been one of the most friendly cities I've ever lived in or been to. And I came here when I was 18, and I was obviously very nervous. Like, will I find friends? Will I meet people that are, similar to me, have similar interests? And honestly, within, even a few days of being here, I was so much more relaxed. I'd say in general, everyone in Glasgow is so open to meeting new people, to speaking to new people, even if, you're maybe like a different type of person to them. And I've met so many incredible people here. So that's definitely a worry that you do not need to worry about, because Glasgow is, as I said, one of the friendliest cities I've ever lived in. In general, also, I know it can be really daunting moving to a new city, especially if you're maybe a little bit more introverted, but there are so many people here, so many people from so many different countries, and there will be a group of friends that, matches kind of the you are. What's really helped me in my time here is at the beginning of coming to Glasgow, I joined quite a few societies, and through that I met some of my best friends, still friends with today as well. So I think that really helps if you join clubs and societies, and then you'll meet people with similar interests to you. And the university has so many different societies to choose from, loads of sports societies, but also even things like cooking societies, hiking societies. There's really anything that's your hobby or your interest. I guarantee you there'll be a society on campus doing that. So that would be my top tip. And I'd say just be open to speaking to people, because in my experience, everyone in Glasgow is really friendly and is open to talk to you and open to help you. And I think just don't be shy, and just go up to people and try to talk to them, because I guarantee you they'll be really glad about it. And that's how I met most of my friends here, and that would be my top tip.
Thanks, Isabella. That's lovely to hear. Karina, what was your experience?
Okay, so in the beginning, I think it's common concern for many students, especially with the different language and accent. But because the environment is very diverse and almost everyone struggling the same thing, I've personally found it quite easy to meet people in Glasgow. Same with Isabella. During Fresher Week, especially, there are so many societies and clubs that you join, which make it very natural to connect with others who share similar interests. I also found that attending university events is really helps because you meet people in much more relaxed setting outside of lecture. And for me, I would regularly check my CRC app each week to see what events were happening and try to join whenever that I could. Like for example, in this few days, we have like this event for exam distress. So we can take a look at that and we can meet like a new people or just a people from same hobbies. So over time, those small interactions really help build friendship and a sense of community, especially when you start seeing familiar faces across different activities.
Sounds like you've really embraced the social scene, which is wonderful to hear, Karina. So we've touched on it briefly, but clubs and societies, which ones would you recommend students getting involved in, Karina? Over and above what you've mentioned already, which ones would you recommend?
Okay, so actually it depends on your preference. You can find it on CRC. We have like a lot of clubs and society, but I really like tea. So I joined the tea society, and not only you can have like new friends, but also have lots of knowledge from the society as well. We have like Harry Potter Society. We have like a lot of society and clubs in the CRC, and you can just join whenever you want because it's just in your phone.
Good tip. What about yourself, Ash? Which societies would you recommend?
I can definitely echo Karina that the number of societies we have at Glasgow is just amazing. And so you name your interest, and I'm pretty sure you'll find something close to it as a society here at Glasgow. And so the amount of opportunities is just insane. And so absolutely join them, because societies are the fastest way to make uni feel much bigger than just lectures. And also it's the easiest way to meet new people. And it doesn't, like, your societies don't have to relate to your degree. You can try random things like theater, for example, which I did, for example. And then entrepreneurial societies, where we invite different entrepreneurs from not just Glasgow, but then across the UK to share their experiences, how they found their entrepreneurship journey, which was something out of interest. And so the sort of framework I like to think about is that I like to think of some degree-specific societies for me personally. And since I do a life sciences degree, the kind of societies that I was involved in were things like Antimicrobial Resistance Society, which sounds like such a cool name. And then there was this Genome Society, which was again degree specific. But then I also was really passionate about joining some societies that are connected to my community. And so I'm an international student and come from India. And for me, joining an Indian society was really useful because it's difficult to live away from home sometimes, and especially on things like festivals and occasions. And when you have a society out there where when you can go and meet people like-minded and just like miss home together, it makes it feel a wee bit better, I think. At least it did for me. And so that's why the Indian societies like Indian National Students Association, and that was another society, I can't think of the name right now, but joining those was really helpful for me. So I would suggest that as well. And then one for growth. So random things like the kind of ones I was talking about, like the theater society, entrepreneurship society. Try it out. And especially during Freshers Week, these things are massively advertised, and there is taster sessions for societies. So you don't have to commit. You don't have to be there every day. You can try a taster session, just get a flavor of what it could be like to be a part of that society. And so it's true that some of the best university experiences actually come from outside your degree. Who could have imagined, right? And so I'd honestly recommend joining at least a few societies which you might already be familiar with or from your interest, and then join at least one which is like completely random. And you'd be surprised by the number of people you're going to meet and the number of experiences that you're going to make. So consistency is also important, because if you find those sort of places and you keep showing up to them, once you've figured out your niche, can really help you to develop those relationships and connections throughout uni as well.
Thanks, Ash. And I bet being a member of the Indian Society, you know where to get the good masala really quick, which is such an important part of moving food, and it's a common language. Isabella, what about yourself? We've talked a little bit about the societies that you've been involved in. What are some of the more obscure ones you've heard about?
Okay, first of all, I completely agree with you, Ash. I must say, in my first few years here at Glasgow, the majority of my time I spent, with either people from my society or in different societies, trying them all out. I've been in quite a few ones as well. I started off doing tennis and ski, which is really cool because the ski society do an annual ski trip. So I went on that twice, which was really fun. And then I also tried musical theatre. And then what I was also going to say is that societies can be a really good way for you to also take on like a bit more responsibility and get some stuff to add to your CV. Because so, for example, most societies in Glasgow have different board positions. So, for example, I was in the dance society and I was a choreographer for 3 years, and then I was in the Adam Smith Economic Society where I was a student rep. So that's also a really great thing about societies, is that you can gain some experience to put onto your CV. In terms of obscure societies, what other societies have I tried? I know there's a scary movie society. I'm also pretty sure there was a cookie society or like a biscuit society. What other crazy societies have I seen? I think at some point, I'm not sure if that still exists, but there was a Star Wars Stormtrooper society, which I think sounded really cool. So as Ash said, and Karina, just try loads of different things, and maybe even try something that you're not familiar with. Maybe try something really niche, or something that's to you, or even something that you might think is a bit obscure. You might have, the best time of your life meeting people there and doing loads of activities with them. So yeah, I definitely think societies and clubs are a huge part of at least my university experience, and they really helped me meet people, and they helped me kind of, come out of myself and develop as a person. So definitely check out all the different societies available here.
Sounds fun as well, which, let's not lose sight of the fact that you're here for an education, but you are supposed to have a bit of fun along the way. Happy students are successful students. So again, all very, very good tips. However, sometimes students have to work alongside their degree. So how manageable is it to work part-time alongside your degree? Can you share your experiences of working, internships, volunteering, etc. during your studies? And we'll come back to yourself, Isabella, first.
Yes. So I would say it's definitely very manageable. Me personally, I've been a radio host volunteer for my entire degree. And then also for the last 2.5 years, I've been a student content creator as well. Luckily, both those part-time work experiences are very flexible time-wise. So they don't, they don't interfere with my studies too much. I'd say usually it's very few hours a week that I do, 3 to 4 hours maybe. But there are also a lot of students that work more set hours part-time, and I've had a lot of friends doing that in the past, and for them that's been very manageable as well. I think the most important thing is to make sure that whatever job you have is, aware that you're a student, that it's a job that, is fairly flexible, especially during, exam times or times where you have more studying to do. And I think it also very much depends what year you're studying in. So for example, in my first few years, I think I would have had much more capacity to take on more hours. But, when you're in exam time, or, maybe towards the end of my postgrad, I definitely have more commitment in terms of studying. So what I would say is, yes, it's very manageable, but I would advise to make sure that whatever job you're doing is flexible around your study time. So for example, my student content creator job is, they're very good at, making sure that when you do have more studying to do, there'll be less work, and then when you have more time, you can work more hours. So I just make sure to set your priorities based off of what uni requires at the moment. But it's definitely very, very manageable, and most of my friends have had jobs throughout uni, even jobs that require a lot of working hours per week, and they've all been absolutely fun. Just make sure that you're also prioritizing your studies.
Very, very sensible suggestion, Isabella. Ash, what about yourself? What's been your experience in this area?
I definitely agree with Isabella. It is very feasible, but strategy matters more than just hustle. And so I would like to think about it almost slightly smarter, in the sense that you can balance out the skills and experiences that you're developing at university with work experiences, and you can complement those things. So then when you start making your CV at the end of the year, you not just have the skills and experiences that you developed in your lectures, labs, and courses, but also loads of other different kind of things that you can develop by working part-time. So for example, building confidence, building communication skills, and working already while you're studying can make you much more employable. You'd be surprised when you start applying for jobs and things like those when you graduate. And also, most importantly, working helps you understand your strengths. It also helps you understand what's exactly your cup of tea, and also, equally importantly, what's definitely not your cup of tea and what's something that you would never do again. And so I can share some experiences of things that I've been involved in. I did a placement year down in Cambridge at the global headquarters of AstraZeneca. It's a pharmaceutical company. And that experience was just amazing. But apart from that, I also, through the university careers support, I got the chance to do a sustainability internship here within my own college, the College of MBLS. And apart from that, I shared the same job as Isabella, being content creator and student ambassador. And that's one of my favorite jobs. And it gets me to opportunities to do things like these Q&As today. And so finding out what works for you. And one thing I tried to do throughout university was choose opportunities that aligned with my interests, rather than just sort of doing things for the sake of my CV, coming back to the point of balancing out the skills that you're learning. And so, for example, my sustainability internship combined research, communication, and student engagement, which are all the three things that I'm passionate about. And maybe these are not the skills that I could have developed to the best of my extent just through my university experience. And then my AstraZeneca placement gave me exposure to the industry science and drug discovery, which is again something I'm really passionate about, discovering new medicines and drugs and changing patients' lives to create a positive impact. And so it helped me to understand what my niche is, and if I do trust what I liked before I started my placement, and if I still like it. And that's a good sign, that gives you a bit of clarity. And so for prospective students, I would say start light and see how the first semester feels, because all different students have different scales of balancing, right? And that balance is very important, the strategy that I was talking about. And so part-time work is great, but academics still need to remain your foundation, because that is the degree that you're pursuing. And so having that sense of balance is what has helped me personally. So my advice would be, don't feel pressured to do everything immediately, especially in your first semester. Try and get a feel of things. Try maybe one job in the beginning and see if that works for you, if that work balance, that a workload works for you as well, because different jobs have different sort of workloads as well. And that all of these things are going to come, and you're going to learn them through that exposure and experience. So put yourself out there, try and take as many opportunities as you can, and as many as they're feasible as well, because being an international student, there's a 20-hour cap. And so being mindful of that, but they're not trying to just then fill those 20 hours, but thinking about that balance and complementation of skills would be my key advice.
Thanks, Ash. Again, all really very valuable tips for the next round of students thinking of joining us. A really big topic for students is also scholarships. So my question to the panel is, did any of you receive scholarships? And could you talk us through the process of applying and then securing that scholarship? Karina, can I come to you on that one?
Okay, thank you, Louisa. I was extremely grateful to receive a Chevening scholarship for my master's study in the UK. The process itself was very challenging because Chevening is one of the most competitive scholarship globally, with thousands of applicants applying every year from more than 160 countries. It's not only about academic achievement, but also like leadership, networking, and demonstrating a clear vision for how you want to contribute to your country after your studies. Japanese scholarship, what helped me most throughout the process was connecting my past work, current goals, and future vision into one coherent story about the kind of impact I want to create in Indonesia cultural and museum sector. For me, the application process required a lot of preparation and self reflection. I spent time developing my essays, clarifying my long term goals in museum and cultural development, and showing evidence of leadership and impact through my work and community involvement. I also prepared carefully for the interview stage where they really wanted to understand my motivation, values, and future plans. And at the same time, I think it's important to be realistic because it is highly competitive. There is never a guaranteed formula for success. Many excellent candidates are rejected each year, so I approach it not as I must win this scholarship, but more as an opportunity to present my experiences and aspiration as authentically and clearly as possible. And there's a lot of scholarship of our University of Glasgow, and one of the biggest advantage of being in scholarship holder at the University of Glasgow is also the access to very strong international community and networking opportunities. There are many events, leadership activities, cultural programs, and professional networking sessions specifically for scholarship holders. That is including Chevening Scholar. I think that environment really helps the students grow beyond academics because you are constantly meeting people from different countries, sector, and backgrounds who are also passionate about creating impact in their communities.
Thanks, Karina. It sounds like quite a process you were through to secure your scholarship. Ash, what about you? Was your scholarship journey a little different?
Very different. I'm impressed, Karina. I'm inspired as well. So my experience was slightly different. I received the undergraduate excellence scholarship, and I was slightly lucky in the sense that there wasn't an elaborate application procedure for the scholarship. But then the metrics that I was assessed on was my academic excellence, and so the scholarship is called undergraduate excellence scholarship. I think I said it already, but the purpose of the scholarship was the way that I used it was not just to help me sort of financially, but also psychologically, because it gave me confidence that the university believed in my potential before I even started my degree. And so this had linked to my bachelor's degree, my honors degree, and then it extended year on year. And the only condition is that you kind of need to be academically excellent throughout the university to keep receiving the scholarship throughout the 5 years. So I've been really lucky and fortunate to receive the scholarship because it's really taken that stress of money, which is big, especially for international students. And so one thing I always say to prospective students is that apply even if you think you might not get it, because a lot of people self-reject before they even try. And so my advice is do not self-reject. Always try and put yourself out there, and kind of like what Karina was saying as well, that apply and so I think universities aren't only looking for perfect grades, they are also looking for motivation, potential, leadership, resilience, and what you contribute to community. And again, on the lines of what Karina was saying. And so it was, my experience was slightly different, but it really helped me to work to the best of my capabilities here when I came to Glasgow.
Thanks, Ash. I'm delighted to hear these scholarships being put to such good use for both of you guys. It's very much the purpose of why we have them. Okay, we'll come to the city of Glasgow now. And this one's for yourself, Isabella. What would you say it's a student-friendly place to live? What would be your comments about the city if anyone asked?
Yes, absolutely. I'd say it's very student friendly, especially the West End where the uni is located. You know, we're very fortunate in the sense that most uni buildings and lectures will be in the West End, which means that pretty much the entire campus is just filled with students. So I've always felt very safe here. You're always surrounded by, people Most of the time when I just leave my flat, I immediately bump into, a bunch of people that I know, some professors, some friends, some other students I study with. So I'd say it's very friendly in the sense that, especially in the campus, you really feel very safe, very at home. I've never really felt isolated or anything like that, just because I always feel like I'm part of, a wider community. In general, the city of Glasgow, I'd say, is also very student friendly. It's a fairly small city, so walking from the West End, for example, to the city centre, it takes me like 15 to 20 minutes maybe. So it's very student friendly in terms of traveling. There's the subway, which takes you right around Glasgow. It's literally a circular subway, which runs all day, and it's there's loads of buses as well. So I'd say transportation's really good and student friendly. I've always felt safe here. There's, especially in the West End, there's students everywhere, student cafes everywhere, study spaces everywhere. So I've always felt like it's a very student friendly city. As I said, I've always felt very safe and very included in the community. And I've never really felt like alone or isolated, because I feel like no matter where you go, there's always an event going on, or people or something going on. And that's another thing I love about Glasgow. It's such a vibrant city. There's always, little festivals, gigs, huge events going on. Most days when you walk into the city centre, there'll be someone, making music or, trying to get you to come to an event. So there's always something to do in Glasgow, and I've always felt very safe and included.
Thanks, Isabella. You make a really good point about the sort of shape and scale of the city. Glasgow is the largest city in Scotland. And I suppose for you guys, Ash, you're maybe thinking, okay, Mumbai, that scale, or Korea, you're thinking Jakarta, that sort of scale, or somewhere like that. No, not even close. But we do have the benefits of being an international and well-connected city. So yes, it's on a much, much smaller scale, which allows us to be a bit more, as you say, friendly and sort of getting to know each other and things like that. It can be much, much easier. But travel around Scotland is sort of very, very accessible for everyone, including our students. Have you guys had the chance to travel much then around the country? And are there any highlights you'd recommend? And I'll come to you, Ash, on that one.
Sure. So, one of the best parts about studying in Glasgow is how easy it is to explore Scotland, because Glasgow gives you a beautiful city experience, but it also gives you a sort of launch pad into the rest of Scotland because of the sort of location of Glasgow. And I heard this from a lot of people before coming over, but then I only really felt it when I dealt with it myself. But you can take an hour-long train and end up at a beach, or you can take a hour-long train ride and end up in the Highlands, in the beautiful mountains of Scotland. And so the location is really prime. And coming from India, especially as well, seeing places like the Highlands for the first time honestly felt so surreal, because it looked like something straight out of a movie, because these are the kind of scenes I was raised with watching just in movies, and then I got to see it. It was really vivid for me. And so I would say my fun recommendation would be, even simple train journeys here are beautiful. And also, more importantly, having that sort of focused time while you're sitting in a train. And for me personally, I sometimes don't even care as much about the final destination, because the journey is just so beautiful that when I have, for example, an assessment, I just take a train ride to Edinburgh and work on my laptop while traveling. And that sitting in that train, watching the Highlands, working, feels like straight out of a dream. So I've been really privileged to be able to travel a bit back in the day now, because I used to have this Young Scot travel card, but I'm over 22 now, so I cry while going to sleep sometimes, thinking I'm too old for the Young Scot card. But anyhow, when I did have it, I got opportunities to travel to places like Edinburgh, Inverness, Isle of Skye, all of the different islands on the coasts, Isle of Arran, St. Andrews, the major big cities, Dundee, Stirling. And I also managed to do a hike to Ben Nevis, which I think is one of the tallest mountains in Scotland. So it's been really fun. And exploring Scotland has been a huge part of my student experience. And it really helps you reset and make the most of your living here. And lastly, some of my favorite university memories actually happened outside the classroom on a random Scotland trip with friends, for example. And so it's been really beautiful of a journey.
Oh, that sounds wonderful, Ash. Sounds like you've seen potentially more of Scotland than I have. And I love the unpredictability of travel and all the adventures it can present. So again, delighted to hear you've really embraced your experience while you're here. If we can go to finances quickly, many students worry about managing their finances. And so do you have guys have any tips for budgeting or money saving, especially for new students? And I'll come to Karina on that one.
Yes, so I think one important thing is to be realistic and intentional with your spending from the beginning. Living in the UK can be quite expensive, especially during the first few months when you are still adjusting. So, budgeting really helps to reduce unnecessary stress. What helped me was separating my expenses into essential and non essential. Essentials would include accommodation, groceries, transportation, and study needs, while things eating out or shopping become more occasional treats rather than daily habits. And I also think students should take advantage of student discount as much as possible because they really add up over time. For transportation, museums, cafes, shopping, or even like cultural activities in Glasgow specifically, there are many free museum, galleries, parks, community events, so you can still enjoy the city without spending too much money. Another tip is to cook more often instead of buying food outside every day. It sounds simple, but it makes a huge difference financially. Planning meals weekly and shopping strategically also helps avoiding overspending. And honestly, I think it's important not to compare your lifestyle with others. Everyone has different financial situation and priorities. Studying abroad is already a major achievement, so finding a balance between enjoying the experience and managing your finance responsibly is probably the most sustainable approach.
Good tip, Karina. And I'm guessing if you make good nasi goreng, you're very popular amongst your flatmates. That would be one of my tips. Learn to make one thing really well. That's how you'll make friends, you'll save money, everybody's happy. Isabella, what about yourself? What are your tips?
Yes, I completely agree with you, Karina. I think it's really important to plan your finances and, look at exactly, places where you can maybe save or, cook at home, all of those things. And just to come back to what you said about student discounts, absolutely. Sometimes it's a bit embarrassing, but I'd say always, wherever you go, whether it's a restaurant or a shop, always ask if they do student discount. It doesn't hurt to ask. And the majority of places here do student discounts. That goes for even cafes, restaurants, shops, delivery services as well. If you do sometimes, if sometimes you do not want to cook, a lot of delivery services do student discount as well. What's really helped me is I've downloaded two apps, Uni Days and Student Beans. They sort of have all the student discounts you can get bundled in one app. And they'll give you discount codes for all sorts of websites, delivery services, restaurants, all of that. So definitely check those out. And then what Ash said earlier, the Young Scot card. Unfortunately, I'm older than 21 as well now, but if you're under 21, you can get free bus travel in all of Scotland. But even if you're above 21 and you still have your Young Scot card, you can get into most museums or, for example, things like castles for £1. So that's really useful to make use of as well. But yeah, my tip would just be always have your student ID with you and ask every place if they do student discount, because most of them do. Even if you feel like it's a bit embarrassing, most places do student discounts.
Never mind embarrassing. Saving money is not embarrassing. I say go for it. Very smart, if you ask me. So I'll come to everybody now. What would be your tips for students who are going to be joining the University of Glasgow next year? Ash, we'll come to you first of all, if that's okay.
I have quite a few tips, but I'm going to boil them down to four key tips, right? I think the first one for me is going to be say yes early on. In your first few months, say yes to opportunities, even if they feel slightly intimidating, and the kind of things that we've discussed, society events, networking, workshops, applying for internships. And so say that yes. I would say, secondly, don't compare timelines. Don't compare your university journey to other people's highlight reels, because social media can be an interesting place and you often end up only seeing the brighter or the slightly positive sides of things. And so be your own boss. Don't compare your journeys and timelines. And then my third one is going to be build relationships. Some of the biggest opportunities I received actually came through conversations with lecturers, mentors, supervisors, and friends. And I can share a really quick example, but I work for a startup now called Nova Heals. And I only found out about this startup through one of my lectures. And then I reached out to the people on LinkedIn and they hired me. And so build those relationships, build that rapport. And then my last one is going to be university is bigger than your grades. So your degree is important, but university is also where you build confidence, communication skills, independence, friendships, and your identity. And so the students who grow the most here usually aren't the ones who arrived with everything figured out. And you don't have to have everything figured out, which took me a really long time to understand. They're the ones who stayed curious and kept putting themselves out there.
So wise, Ash. This education's paying off, clearly. Karina, what about you? What would be your tips for the next round of students joining us?
I actually echoing with Ash because my biggest advice would become is to come with an open mind and be willing to step outside your comfort zone. Studying at the University of Glasgow is not only about academic, it's also about meeting new people from different culture, learning new perspective, and growing personally. I also encourage new students to actively build connection, join societies, university events, talk to people in your classes. And another important tip is to manage your time and energy well. A master program in the UK sadly moves very quickly, so staying organized from the beginning really helps. Try not to leave reading and assignments until the last minute because the workload can build up faster than expected. And I also think that students should make the most of their resources available at the University of Glasgow. There are many support systems like academic support, career services, well-being, international student communities. You don't have to figure out everything alone. And lastly, enjoy the experience beyond academic, explore Glasgow, visit museum, cultural spaces, travel when possible, and allow yourself to fully experience living in a new environment. For me, studying abroad is not only about getting a degree, but also about becoming a more adaptable, independent, and globally minded person.
Thanks, Karina. Again, really, really helpful tips. What about yourself, Isabella?
Yes, I completely agree with you, Ash and Karina. All of those things are so, so important. I think my biggest tip would be to have an open mindset, be open to meeting new people, making new connections, exploring new places. I think that's kind of the most important thing because yes, of course, the academic is super important, but it's really important to develop in all of the other aspects in your life. And I think it's so important, go up to those people in your class and try and speak to them, join a society, try and make friends. You're really going to need that support system and, try your best to just come out of your comfort zone and experience as many things as you can. I'd also say though that it is very important, especially doing a postgrad, to sort of have your study priorities set well. I've noticed that this year, especially compared to my undergrad, the workload is a lot more, and I did have to maybe cut down on a few of the social aspects, but it's just really important to prioritize your study but still have a balance where you explore and meet people and socialize. And then also I'd say a very big tip from my side, especially if you're doing a postgrad, is relax. At some point you're gonna need, studying 24/7 isn't gonna help you. Make sure to have that time out, relax, calm back down. I'm not very good at that. I'm trying to balance that at the moment, but that would be my tip. And then lastly, I'd say enjoy your time here. It goes by really, really fast. I've been here for almost 5 years and it's gone so fast. So I can't imagine how fast it must go by for people who are 1 year postgrad here. So just enjoy your time here, have an open mindset, prioritize your studies, but also prioritize social life and relaxing and exploring and, developing all of those areas of your life and just growing as a person.
Thanks, Isabella. It's a real adventure university, isn't it? And as you've all said, it's not just the academics, which are hugely important. It's about much, much more than that. I've got one last question, and we'll stay with yourself, Isabella, if we may, in the first instance, but it will go to everybody. If there's only one item you should pack in your suitcase, given your time again, what would that item be? Isabella, what do you think?
Oh, it's very hard to buy. I can tell you what item to not bring is an umbrella. People, of course, everyone says it rains here so much, but an umbrella will not be useful to you at all. I've bought like 3 different umbrellas in just the start in September, and they all broke within the first use because the wind here is so heavy, it will just, fly away, break. So don't bring an umbrella, bring a raincoat. But aside from that, what I'd say to bring is a camera. Or, I mean, most people have their phone camera, but I, for example, I also bought what do you call them? Like the one-time use camera to get, and then you go and develop the pictures. Actually, I have it here, right? I bought this. Buy a camera and capture your life here on camera to have those memories for the future.
Good suggestion. What about you, Ash? If you could only bring one thing in your bag, what would it be?
It's an interesting answer because it would be layers, right? So Glasgow weather changes within seconds. You could have one day where you'd see a hailstorm, a really sunny moment, raining, and then windy, like multiple different sort of weathers within just an hour. And so I would say bring those layers, bring as many sort of, and because like wearing layers is interesting, right? You need to think about color combination and matching and weather and all of those things. And so bring as many layers as you can so you can end up always having a few extra ones when you leave the house.
Good tip, Ash. Karina, what would you suggest?
Okay, for me, I think students should also bring something personal that reminds them of home, whether it's snacks, photos, or a small meaningful item, because it can really help during the adjustment period of living abroad.
All really good tips. And without realizing, nobody said their phone, their laptop, nothing to do with the academic stuff. It's all the surrounding stuff, which echoes the sentiment of what we've discussed today. So all really very good tips. It just remains for me to say now, thanks for tuning in today, everybody. For those watching live, remember there are still some more sessions running as part of the online open day. So head over to our website for the links to those. If you do have further questions, you can chat to a current student through our Ask a Student service. And to find out more about student life, check out our Get to Know You podcast featuring real live Glasgow students, which you can find on all major podcast providers. We also have a fantastic selection of student vlogs and blogs on all aspects of student life, on topics from trips in Scotland to finding accommodation and the cost of living. So be sure to check those out. Thanks for watching, everyone, and we hope to welcome you to the team UofG in the not too distant future. Take care, everyone. Have good days.